You may begin.
Good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for coming out and listening to our sales plan. And special thanks to Mr. Ford and his team for Skyping in and listening to us. And we've really worked hard on this plan, and we really believe that we have a strong, viable plan that will be very good at implementing when going into Peru. My name is Steven Berciaga.
Ana Pinajero.
Diane Stout. And Trisha Wen.
And we are Collision Consulting. Today we're going to talk to you about Peru. We're going to take a step back into 2012 and talk to you about flooding that happened. We're going to talk to you about the importance of emergency preparedness, why PowerPot is a solution, and why PowerPot will help change the lives of others.
Now before we begin, it is important to understand the regional realities of Peru. Now this means looking at the population, the size, the economy, the poverty, the corruption, and international investors. Peru is about 30 million people strong. It's 5 times the size of Texas, a vast resource of natural wealth, as Team SF mentioned for us. And that also contributes to its strong economic growth that is also related to its political stability. So over the past 10 years, it has grown annually at 6% and is forecasted to continue at 4% growth to 6% growth. Now, this also relates to poverty, which has reduced to 25% from its 40% in 2007. Currently, Peru is the 83rd least corrupt country in the world, and the 2 major investors into Peru, as it is important to understand this, as we are working with a US-based company that is manufacturing in China, is that its 2 biggest financial investors into Peru, both on the corporate side and governmental side, is the US and China.
So before going on further, let me bring you back to last year, 2012, where 90% of natural disasters in Peru were floods. This is relevant because, as said in the book, The Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid, many people do not prepare for the future. They rather react to whatever happens to them. And this is due to the fact that they have an unstable income flow. These people are also living next to rivers and in downhill of mountain regions because they do not have access to water. So they are looking to be located where they can have access to this water. And this can be a problem because when natural disasters happen, just like earthquakes or floods or even just heavy rains, they find themselves in a problem because rivers grow and dams get flooded, so these communities get affected by them. So let me tell you a specific story about one of those Hispanic regions. A couple of years back, this region living downhill of a volcano and next to a river got the warning by the local Institute of Civilian Defense that they should move out of the region for a couple of days because the heavy rains were going to continue. And it's important to know that there are some areas of Peru that it rains from 4 to 6 months out of the entire year. So these people, because were afraid and they didn't really understand the magnitude of the problem, did not relocate. What happened next was that it kept on raining, and the entire families died. Entire families were lost and never found because of the power of the river, how it grew. So it's important to know that these people are living, as I mentioned before, in the bottom of at the base of the socioeconomic pyramid, which means that they are living under $2 a day. So they're not preparing for something like this, right? So if you were not prepared for something like this and something happened and you're already living under $2 a day, what would you do? How can Chiropractic help these people be better prepared or better response to such an emergency like this? This is what we're going to talk to you about today.
So now that you've heard a more human story of what emergency disasters, natural disasters are like in Peru, let's get into some stats and really look at what it's like in Peru. From December 2012 to March 2013, a mere 4 months, over 180,000 individuals were affected by natural disasters. Now you may think that it's a big natural disaster. Maybe a big catastrophe happens. It happens, but it's not typical. No, it's actually comprised of 900 small to medium natural disasters, such as floods. In fact, over 90% of the natural disasters are floods in Peru. So what does this mean? Is that the local level, these districts, these regions, don't get international attention, international support, or even national support to deal with these situations. This is also presented in the 40% decrease of international funding and national funding for disaster relief programs. But the interesting fact is that it's not just because of that. It's because the national and international community is shifting their mindset to emergency preparedness. This is a huge opportunity that Power Practical can invest in.
So this brings us to the region of Cusco. Cusco is one of 25 regions composing the entire country of Peru, and it has historically been affected the most by natural disasters. The poverty map made by the Peruvian Institute for Social Development has marked this region as the poorest region in the entire country, because 4 out of the top 10 districts, the poorest districts, are found in this region. So even though the entire country's poverty percentage has gone down up to 25.8%, the percentage of this region still is around 58%, and this is due to the fact that many of these people, more than half of these people living in this region live in rural areas. And people living in rural areas, only 70% have access to basic services such as water. But what is shocking is that out of those 70%, only 40% have access to clean, drinkable water. So another fact about this region is that it's a really young region. They have 35% of its population being around 15 years of age or younger. I'm sorry, and then only 6% are older than 60 years old. So I want to take you to, so we have Peru, we have the Cusco region, now we have the province of Calca, and inside of the province of Calca we have the district of Lares. Lares is one of those regions that I was telling you about earlier, that is the poorest districts of the entire country. An interesting thing about Lares is that it actually is surrounded by hot springs. As we will learn later on, the Power Plant 5 has the capacity of running through the heat emitted by the hot springs. So one of our Peruvian contacts once told us, and I want to share with you, that Peruvians actually can make anything into a job, and this community has proven him right. Because even though they lack local government, this community is really leadership driven. They have come together as an entire community, and they have built a hotel kind of composed of a few rooms that brings in attractions to this, tourist attraction to this, to the hot springs. So as we learn, the Power Practical has the big opportunity of helping this community.
So how can Power Practical help improve the quality of life of people in Lares, Peru, which is the community within Cusco who deal with many natural disasters such as flooding and earthquakes? The same community who lack access to clean water and energy. Well, Power Practical can do this through offering the thermoelectric power pot, which includes typical bundles such as the power pot, the LED lights, the bag, the charging cable, and the battery pack. And by offering this power pot to this community, they're offering purified water and energy access to these communities. So they can also, besides purified water, they can also capitalize on the opportunity to unlocking gateways to new innovations. So for example, there's a booming business The market for USB devices is actually growing, so Power Practical can provide people with access to checking their blood pressure or their glucose levels through these medical devices at home, even in a state of emergency. They can also provide communities and families in their homes with light through their LED light, which can light up an entire room. They can also give them access to the use of their cellular devices during disaster by providing them with energy to power up their devices. And all this can be done through two elements: fire and water.
So what's our plan? When going into a new market, you have to understand that you have to gain as much momentum as you can immediately. That way you can use the profit that you just gained from that market and reinvest it back into it, rather than draining what you have in the States. So in doing this, we have 4 pillars through emergency preparedness for Power Practical. We have the government collaboration, the corporate sales, the NGO partnerships, and the microfinance collaboration. Now, it's important that you look at these 4 almost like distribution channels. In a sense, it's kind of like when Power Practical sells it to an academy or some sort. Now, you may be thinking 4 pillars is a little bit too much at the very beginning, but this is where it gets interesting and a little bit fun. So we have 2 contacts that we have already established that are very, very powerful and influential when it comes to Peru. Our first one is Luis Picon. He's the president of the Huánuco region, and he's projected to be one of the front runners for the presidency of Peru. He's going to help us with military sales, government emergency preparedness sales, as well as corporate influence, specifically in the mining industry. Our next contact is an NGO by the name of Dante Alboco. He is the Chief Executive Officer of El Capital Humano. He has opened his Rolodex to us and is going to be working with us on finding the right strategic partners through his contacts for NGO collaboration and microfinance partnership.
So in developing our cost to deliver in Peru, we have to consider one important element: logistics. In other words, what is it going to cost us to deliver our manufactured product from, for example, we're going to use Shanghai, China, the port in there, to all the way to our final destination in Larez, Peru. So that's why we're working very closely with General Manager Chuck Rollo from Logistics International to help us create and build quotes based on shipping units of 1,000, 3,000, and 5,000. So with this, each individual quotes, he will have it broken down in details, including insurance, duties, taxes, etc.
Now, what does this mean to you, Mr. Ford? So, when speaking to you in September, you told us that your base cost of building the power pot in China will be $30. Now, adding all the accessories that we talked about with the cable and whatnot, the accessories will be an estimated price of $15. Now, once we get our quote back from Mr. Rollo, we will be able to break it down to cost per unit with logistics, as well as the total estimated cost. Now, when speaking to business professionals that take products from the U.S. and moving them into international, they told us that the market sets the price. It's very important to understand that. And they also recommended that we go in at under $100. Keep in mind that many of these outlets or pillars may be selling the product once more.
So our final thoughts. Power Practical has the passion to find a higher purpose and to serve people in a way that's more meaningful in their lives. So through providing these families facing crises with the Power Pot 5, they're giving these families more value. They're providing value to Peruvians, their communities, as well as future generations. Power Practical has the opportunity to give these communities things that we take for granted: clean water, energy, and light. So with knowing that, the solution, these are the very elements that can create more sustainability to these families who are stricken by disaster. So the solution to the fight against poverty is through action. So our next plan of action is for Power Practical to take the strategies that we've just shown you and implement them into Larez, Peru in January. Thank you again. My name is Trisha Wynn.
Diane Stowe.
Steven Barciaga.
Ana Tinajero.
And we want to thank every one of you for taking your time out today, for coming here and to listen to our sales plan. And now we are open for a discussion.
I guess I'll start it off with supply chain. I was kind of confused when the product is arrived in Lima. How exactly is it being transported to your target market?
Logistics International is going to configure all of that for us, but I looked on searace.com and looked how they're going to ship it from Guangzhou, China. I use that as an example, all the way to Larez, Peru. And if you're taking a vessel going at 24 knots with the trucks going 45 miles an hour, it takes about 35 days and 18 hours to get from Guangzhou, China, all the way to Larez, Peru.
So it's going to be transported by bus?
They do it through sea. They do it by sea.
I'm just not from Lima to your city.
To a truck, by truck, yes.
By truck.
Yes.
What challenges have you? Because one of the things that you guys are trying to sell is the natural disasters. So what challenges do you have if a natural disaster or some kind of flooding or the roads with the transportation, could that affect your transportation? Is there like a straight path?
Our plan is more of emergency preparedness, and yes, the final destination of Larez, Peru is actually, the last 30 kilometers are unpaved, so it's dirt road, because it is one of the 4 more impoverished districts in the entire Peru. But the point is that we are trying to do for emergency preparedness, because people do not prepare for emergencies. That's why we're selling to businesses that do prepare for emergencies, for them to be better prepared and provide the solutions in advance to the people.
And on top of your question, just to clarify more, I know you're saying like during an emergency there's like broken roads and there's no access to the Peruvian Red Cross or to medical centers. Just like through FEMA and things like that, I mean, they kind of have to figure out ways to get past these roads that are broken, whether they fly and ship these to the rural areas or drive them, or figure out a way to get these products to people who are in need. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I'm sure you covered it, but I was a little bit unclear. So that the buyer would be, say, the military or the government, and then would they be distributing these, say, free of charge to villagers during an emergency?
Yes.
Per organization, institution, they will do with the product as they choose. So if they choose to distribute it, then they'll distribute it. If they choose to sell it, let's say a microfinance institution wants to sell it again, then they'll sell it again.
I see.
Yeah, ideally will be that the governmental institutions or non-profit institutions will give it out, for when it's for emergencies. But the microfinance institution might probably most likely resell it for another price.
So we are selling business to business.
So to that, how do you know that these partners that you created are going to go to Larez? How are you guaranteeing that?
Oh, because, the El Capital Humano, the NGO El Capital Humano, is based nationally. They don't do the same project nationally, but they go to different places that they see that the need is there, or that the resources are there available. So when we present this plan to them, they're already looking for a strategic partners. But we will present them and we'll give them that these people have the most need.
So is it guaranteed that they will be taking this product to that pilot market?
I mean, it's not 100% guaranteed, because nothing is, but we will. It is in the top.
It's a strong recommendation. However, once again, with doing these 4 pillars, it will help Power Practical push their pot more in a larger scale throughout Peru. But it is what we're going to recommend too.
So normally your project, you have the military, who else?
We have the government, we have microfinance institutions, we have NGOs, and we have corporate
CSR programs.
Yeah.
And they're all interested in buying the product, so to prepare for an event.
Yes.
Is that the main, so normally they would find another use meanwhile, or they would store it, and then when there's a flooding they would use it?
Yes. It for the different. The beauty of our plan is that there's 4 different pillars. So Power Practical might want to choose just one or two or all four of them. So every pillar can go about the plan however they want, because our plan is to be business to business. And then, for example, the corporate project,
The CSR.
yeah, the CSR programs will be, through companies of gas or mining that might have a bad public opinion, a bad public from the Peruvians. So they will help distribute this and better their public opinion, and that's how they will be incentivized to buy this and distribute it.
And to add to that, there's already an example, I believe, about the backpacks. The Peruvian Red Cross has these backpacks that they use in emergency disaster anyway, that they probably store in infrastructure until an emergency does hit, that they do distribute.
How are you going to generate interest for your product for these the government, the microfinance institutions?
We
and
already
NGOs?
have. When we talking with these two contacts, they are extremely interested,
Yes.
and so they're going to send it to everybody.
They're already looking. They're already, as of right now, they told us give us more time because we're really interested. I'm actually looking for the best strategic partners for you guys.
Well, why the power pot compared to your competitors? Like, why your product instead of something else?
Because our project the Power Practicals product has the ability to withstand different different surfaces, different environment. It doesn't need light, from the sun. It's very,
Through thermal electricity, which can be used over any sort of heat source.
like I said, even hot springs. So they won't have to buy wood, they won't have to collect wood or buy gas. They can just put it in the hot spring.
What are they already using for emergency preparedness?
For in this region, that's the thing. The people are not. Basically, they are through the National Institute of Civilian Defense in Peru. They help them, and they do actually, like, there's how do you say simulator? A simulation, an earthquake simulation at night that's going to be scheduled for October, I believe, 17 or something like that. So the National Institute of Defense that we're trying to work with through El Capital Humano NGO already does different little things, but none of them are targeted. That's why we see the opportunity.
Right, and they're not targeted, and that's why these impoverished nations are getting more weak. They're already sick, and there's always endemic outbreaks of diseases, and that's why we're trying to help them with purified water and energy so we can prevent outbreaks, and through a filtration system that we're working on the next phase.
Okay, didn't you mention the Red Cross has backpacks already for emergency preparedness?
That was the ones that have the backpacks is the National Institute for Civilian Defense.
Okay, but what are in those backpacks?
There are different little things, like emergency kits or blankets and stuff like that. So we were trying to get Dante Albuco from El Capital Humano to open those doors for the Civilian Defense Institute to maybe even add the power pot to this backpack.
In other words, it fits really well with the backpacks, and it will fit well because of all the benefits that come with the power pot.
Yes.
Were you finished? Okay. What is the most common natural disaster in your target market? Flooding. So let's hypothetically say that it's flooding right now, it's raining. Your only source of heat is, like you said, fire. So if it's raining and it's fire, it's like
Hot springs.
Hot springs?
Lattice is surrounded by hot springs.
Do the hot springs get flooded?
Well, but as you know, the hot springs are coming from the ground.
I'm just trying to kind of picture the consumers or these families that are trying to use the product if it's like really in bad condition and they're trying to do what they're doing with your product. Wouldn't the rain or if they're trying to see if the source wouldn't I don't know.
The power pot can withstand extreme conditions, extreme wear and tear.
And hot springs remain hot.
Do you know if this product has been used in hot springs before?
I believe some of the reviews that we found online have said that they have used it, and even one said that they were able to use it with a hot engine of the car. When it's still hot, they put it there and it didn't work there.
So if they, I'm sorry.
So I mean, that could be another option if things are getting flooded out. They can drive their car and they use it on top of the engine if it's hot. If it's possible that they could take their car away from the area.
They have.
Earlier you mentioned using the USB market is growing, and so knowing that fact, what's in your plan in order to reach those people that are using USB for medical devices and those other devices that you mentioned?
They could just we could do more research as far as what companies are actually making these USB devices and what they're making, and with that, if you're in an emergency disaster, then you're not going to have access to medical care. You're not going to have access to do anything. And if you're diabetic, like some people are, then you'll be able to use the thermoelectric pot and use that as energy to use your device to measure your glucose levels if you need to, or measure your blood pressure.
So you're only going to have your clients or end user use it during an emergency?
They could use it whenever there's...
Not necessarily, because that's where our different pillars come from. For example, we were talking about microfinance.
So that's my question, just to clarify. My question is, how are you stated that the USB device market is growing. What is your strategy in order to reach that market? Just to clarify.
To partner with different
which one?
For the NGOs.
Which
the
one?
El Capital Humano.
Okay, what are they going to do to help you to sell these?
They're like our contact already told us that they will open the doors, the proven doors through government and partnering with even other NGOs. So he said that whatever we want to for this product, he will try to help the best.
Okay, so still utilizing the government for emergency preparedness.
Yes.
It's in order to sell them, I think there's such a need for medical at-home medical care is becoming more pervasive. I think there's that need where you don't really have to push for it, because in emergency disasters, you're going to need medical devices or medical care.
And another great thing about this plan is that there's less decision points when you are, or for the amount of volume that you'll be selling. They'll be selling in bulk, obviously, because you're selling it to these institutions and these businesses and these organizations.
We have time for one more question.
So do they not have means currently of like boiling water? And then also, is Lardis, does it get flooded all the time? And
No.
then, so they just distribute them once? Or I mean, are you guys limiting yourself by just focusing on Lardis? Or
I mean, this is a pilot program. So
We have multiple phases, and our pilot program is just going to focus on Lares, and then it's going to start spreading out to Cusco as well as all Peru, and then in phase 2, when Power Practical decides to move forward, then it will be distributed throughout all of South America. So this allows them to grow continuously rather than sustain.
All right, let's thank Vision Consulting. And now I'd like to welcome Team Center.